Welcome back to Real Estate with Mariah and Spenc. Good evening, good afternoon,
Good morning.
Good morning whenever you're watching this video. Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. We love hanging out with you guys and talking about real estate every week. So today we are talking about a lowball offer, which basically an offer that is lower than list price. That's just basically what it is. Most listing agents will at least encourage their seller clients to counter an offer like this. But sometimes the seller gets so offended, we've definitely seen this before, that they don't even want to work with the buyer at all and just take the offer really personally, and it ruins any chance that the buyer might have had at getting it under contract. So today we are sharing a few steps you can take to up the odds that your low offer will be accepted, or at least that it would get a counter offer sent back to it without offending the sellers.
Man,
Yeah,
this is
it's a
jam-packed.
mouthful.
There's
It
so
is.
much going on there.
There's a lot to talk about this. Yes.
Man, because it's so hard, though. Because if you're a buyer wanting to purchase a property, obviously we're in it for the best deals, right? So us as brokers, my job is to make the best deal, create the best deal for you, give you the best options that works for your lifestyle, your situation, your location, your workplace. And there's a really delicate spot when creating and writing an offer for particular sellers.
Yeah.
Generally, though, what I could relate it to is the communication on behalf of the buyer's agent and seller's agent to initially even know if what you guys are discussing during the initial showing between you and your buyer is worthy or not. Because usually we book a showing, you guys are really interested in these properties, and then we start creating, well, what do you think about the seller? Would they take this amount or do this to the property before we purchase it? And that's all metaphorical, in the end of the day, because after the showing, what's happening? Us making the call and communicating with the seller's agent.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's so true. And sometimes a home has been on the market for quite a while, and that's usually the better option to try to do a lowball offer on. But then there's times where the whole reason it's been on the market that long is because the sellers are so firm. They're like, we're not budging off our price at all. Like, they're not willing to consider anything. So
absolutely.
But we'll get into that. So before we get into our list, I have a list of tips for this, and then we can kind of just discuss them between us.
Cool. Read them off.
But before we get into it, though, real quick, I think it's important to say before sending any super lowball offer, I think you should really take a look at how important is this house to you. If you really love the house, and because I know we've been in this situation before too, where it was like, do we write a lowball offer? Well, we really like the house. We don't want to miss out on it. And so we just don't. So if you really love the house and missing out on it would be a huge deal to you, then maybe shy away from offering too low, or you might miss out on it altogether. But if getting a bargain is more important to you right now than the actual home itself, and you're less invested in which house you actually own, then you're in your situation. A lowball offer could be a good decision for you to at least try out. But my best advice would be when I say lowball offer, like, people might be like, well, what's lowball? Like, is that 100,000 under? No. I would say about around 25,000, or I'm sorry, around 25%. Of the asking price. It hovers around that, and see what happens after that. So I would say that's about like a lowball amount. But
in markets swing, markets are different. I mean, compared to where we were years ago or even 10 months ago, this is a wild, crazy market. And every cold call or every call I'm making, do my for sale by owners, is what's going on? Because I kind of want them to educate me too on the unprofessional side of, like, I mean, are you guys selling a house? Are you guys getting showings at least? What are people initially saying during these showings that are happening if you're for sale by owner? So I'm always working some type of angle, whether it's relational or particularly to get another listing. But ultimately, it's picking somebody's brain and seeing kind of where this market's heading and where people are at.
That's smart. Okay, so the first tip for you, if you're wanting to have the best shot at getting your lowball offer accepted, is stay up to date on current market conditions. Be a consistent viewer or listener of real estate shows online like ours, where we give practical examples and share stories every week of what we're actually seeing in the day-to-day as realtors and what is going on in the market, because knowing what's going on in the market will really help you when it comes to knowing what is a lowball offer right now. Because a year ago, writing an offer at ask price was looked at as a lowball offer in many cases. So if the market is completely super competitive, then obviously you're less likely to get a lowball offer accepted or even looked at. So take into consideration what's going on in the market. And I think just having that base knowledge, or at least like a little bit of background of staying up to date with what's going on, just be educated here.
I think that's some of the best advice. Seriously, what you just said, and it kind of applied what I just said too. I call for sell by owners just for the fun of it, and just say, hey, what's going on, and educating yourself. Like you said, if it's not our podcast, because we have one show a week, there's so many podcasts out there. You can create and schedule in your routine. Driving times, really particular for me. If I'm in my car, I usually have something educational on, or I'm on the phone with a client. That's my priorities there. So always look to further your knowledge in today's real estate market, because ultimately that's going to grab you some wealth, whether it might not be now, it could be 10 years from now. Real estate will build you wealth if you have the patience, but also are willing to educate yourself to get you where you want to be, to benefit you and your family if you got one.
And if you're wanting to invest in real estate, I would say it's important to both be keeping an eye on, at least, of what's going on nationally in the real estate market, but also locally. So like your local area or wherever it is that you're wanting to invest in that area. Okay, the second one, you mentioned this before, but this is so important. Have your agent contact the listing agent. So when we represent buyers, I never write an offer without reaching out to the listing agent. The only times I write an offer and don't actually get to speak to the listing agent is if it's a time where it's like the deadline is by today at 5 p.m. and they just will not pick up their phone. And so I try to text and communicate how I can, but sometimes you just can't reach them. But anyway, having your agent contact the listing agent really helps. They can't tell you how much any other offers are, how much the seller's willing to accept. That's not legal for them to give any information like that, but it does help give a feel for how motivated are these sellers. What's their motivation like?
And it comes down to, in competitive markets like we've had, is getting the upper hand on somebody else. And that's why communicating with other agents is so important, because you could have that conversation with them and say, you know, what's important to your seller? What do you think we should include, uninclude, exclude from this offer, and make it as clean as possible, but ultimately look different than anybody else? And I say that quite often when presenting offers, when we are heading into a multiple offer situation or just a competitive price range. Hey, buyer, what are you willing to do to look different? I can give you all these ideas, options, but ultimately it comes down to you, your decision you want to make to be a first-time home buyer or repetitive buyer, but look different when we submit offers. I always think that gives you the upper hand by far.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so this next one, number 3, is be respectful of the sellers. Keep in mind that this could be the place where they raise their family and they might be selling because they're forced to, not because they want to. So there's a lot of factors involved, but I know, we obviously have worked with many buyers and many sellers before, so we kind of can see both perspectives. And we've definitely come across a lot of home sellers who just flat out get offended. They take any bit of lowball as they're trying to swindle me, or as they don't think my house is worth, just whatever way they want to get offended, they get offended by it. So keep in mind, just try to not step on their toes.
Yeah, in the fence, I always see usually when the home seller does a lot of the work themselves, the craftsmanship, handyman work, if you will.
Yeah.
It's always a very delicate position to be in, whether you're representing them or going against them and submitting an offer. And so you do want to pick your words wisely, I guess, would be my advice.
Yeah. And just try to, be respectful of the sellers. Okay. So eliminate as many contingencies as you can. with a steal of a price, if you're trying to get a steal of a price, you shouldn't expect to have the sellers make repairs or leave any items in the home that, usually, of course, every situation, every market, every house is different, but usually that isn't realistic. You got to pick and choose. If sellers already feel like they're letting go of their house for a bargain, don't complicate things. Keep the rest of your offer as simple as possible, and just be as easy to work with and as flexible as possible with the sellers. Be flexible with closing date. Give them time to get out of the house after closing, like if they want. Like, just if you're trying to get a deal on the price, then be flexible in all the other areas.
What I really liked what you had to say was don't complicate things.
Yes.
If you already know you're getting a deal you're happy with initially, or right off the bat, just don't complicate it. I see this happen so often, seriously. And usually it's like experienced business owners as well. They overcomplicate it. I personally feel like they always want more. And sometimes less is better in real estate transactions, especially if you've already been getting a deal on the initial offer. Because, I mean, ultimately, yeah, you can ask, but then in the end of the transaction, people are burnt out, people are unwilling, and then there's a salty sense in your mouth. There's a salty just feeling that in the end, the seller that's lived there for years and years, that you don't know their situation, you don't know if there was a death or a family member or financial problems. And that's kind of one of the key things in real estate where we want to be responsible with when guiding our clients to make right decisions, but also just benefit all parties too, though, in the end. Because sometimes a good deal really is where you're content, they're content, and both parties walk away happy.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So next is have your financing in order. So that I would say is important no matter what kind of offer you're writing or where you're writing it. But I think it's especially important if you're trying to write a low offer, have no questions that you're going to get the financing. Make sure that they know. And I always make sure when I send over the pre-approval, of course, I always make sure like, hey, this is our lender's information. You can give him a call. Like, he's a solid lender. This is going to go smoothly. Like, we are qualified. Like, call and chat. Like, this, it just helps. But make sure that there are no questions, that you will get qualified or be qualified or stay qualified. No red flags, and have everything in order and ready to go beforehand is really helpful. Yes. Okay. So the last thing to keep in mind, be prepared to lose the house if your offer is too crazy low. Sometimes, even if the home has been on the market for a while, the sellers will stand firm on their list price. And like I said, sometimes that's why it's been on the market for a while. They want to wait it out. But at the same time, if you can make your offer as respectfully as possible and in the context of your local market, you might end up with a bargain and a home that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when that's applied, so it's like, hey, let's submit this. Usually people are like okay with it not getting accepted. Some investors, they're just like,
unattached completely.
Yes.
Well, it's easier when it's an investment though versus when it's a home you're writing an offer on, because I know this obviously from personal experience. When it's the home you're writing an offer on, you're already in your mind like planning oftentimes where you're going to put your furniture and what you're going to do with the home. And like, you don't even know if your offer's been accepted yet, but it's a lot more like emotional of a decision than if it's an investment. It's like, on to the next one. Who cares?
It really is.
It's
Real
so
estate's a true emotional investment.
If you're buying it
it's
to
for
live
personal
in,
use.
Yes.
It's so funny though how we operate our brain. Like if it's an investment property, it's all like, oh, let's insult. Let's like 40,000 under ask price. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then like, if that's you personally doing it, that's completely fine. But then on the other end, the person writing up the deal, like us, the realtor, like it's our choice to represent you in those situations or not. But it in the back of our brains, it's like,
we're like, ooh,
why am I doing this?
Yeah, this is no shot. This is crazy.
But there are things that happen, and all I need is a counter.
Yeah,
all I need is something that gets the ball rolling, and it's workable. And if you're an investor, sometimes that's how your life is played out.
Yeah. But it makes sense. I mean, it makes total sense that it is that way, because if you're buying a home, like if I'm buying a home as an investment, I don't even need to go inside half the time. Like I don't care. Like, but if it's your primary residence, you are like excited to start living there. Like there's so much more involved, and you're willing to pay a lot of times more because, and not necessarily, and be okay with not getting like a deal because it's what you want and you want to live there and you're going to sit. Like it's not that situation where it's like, this is how I'm going to make my money.
That's what I love about you though, Rye.
What?
Is you just don't care. Like if you want something, like it's not a bad thing or a good thing.
I just don't care.
Like not every property, but most of the properties we have personally went out, looked at, viewed through wanting to repurchase something. Mariah's all like, if I like it, I like it. Let's submit full price. Oh, let's give them this. She's very generous. That's what I've learned when Mariah is seeking a home personally.
Yeah, it's true.
She knows what she wants. And is that a bad thing?
No.
Exactly.
No.
It's not a bad
I'd rather
thing at all.
overpay for the house that I want than get a deal and have the house that I only kind of want.
No,
if it's the one I want, it's the one I want.
I feel like we have always overpaid.
But we've always walked away making money, making a profit, and being happy living there. So who cares?
No,
like,
if you're the
cares?
audience listening to this, think about what I just said. I feel like I have always overpaid. And I'm sitting here across the table from you, and I'm fine with that. Because look at where we're at now. It's profited us every time in the end. And when it comes to real estate, like I mentioned in the very beginning of the show, if you're willing, it can create you wealth and opportunity in the future.
Let me add, though, overpaid. We've always overpaid when it comes to primary residences. Not as far as, we're not talking about investments like
cash flow is cash flow.
A rental property you're flipping, like that's completely different. But if it's for you to live in, then the situation's different. But anywho,
that's good.
That's all we have for this week.
No real estate stories for you? You want to get something going?
You can. Do you have a story? I don't have any stories from this week. Do you have a story?
I got a story.
Okay.
I do got a story.
What?
Because I think, it's like within this last week and a half. Okay. I think it applies to today's real estate market, and that's why I'm going to share it.
Okay.
The market's kind of settled. It's sitting. Less buyers are applying for applications. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's up to you guys. Let me know in the comments. But it is becoming balanced. And here's an opportunity for investors, I believe. We mentioned a little bit of investors today, so that's why I'm going to touch on it.
Okay.
I rarely talk about investors. There's these buy a house for cash, programs out there. This particular one's in California. Okay. They've never seen the home in person. Built in 98, 1,700 square foot out in Newburgh. Oh. They write a letter to this client I'm representing on the buyer side. So my client, she's buying a new property. And they write a letter. This is how she came in contact with them. And they probably sent it to thousands of people.
They wrote a letter to her house that she was selling?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't even for sale.
But
they just saw that she has a ton of equity in it.
Okay.
It's basically paid off now.
Okay.
And they write her an offer. In this letter, basically outlines, what they're willing to do. If she decides to reply to it, she has X amount of time to accept what they're offering her.
Okay.
In her eyes, she's older.
Okay.
She has a partner. They both have health problems at this point in their life, this stage in their life, and they lean on each other, which is a beautiful partnership for them. But they are looking to downsize, and they could really honestly use the cash right now. In my one reply to them, though, through all of this is, do you realize you could make, $40,000, $50,000 more if you were to list your property right now? And some people, they jump on it and be like, yep, let's do it. Let's list it and let's go and get the ball rolling. For these individuals, they have the option to take that cash offer that was sent to them in the mail. No one's ever seen the home. Those offer writers, I guess you could say, for these, we'll buy your home for cash. They've done the analytics on this home. They know what they can resell this property for. And they ultimately have gone with that cash offer.
Really?
Yeah. And here's why. They just didn't want people walking through their home. It's inspection free. It's a for sure sale in their eyes. And they get 2 weeks after closing to live in the home, to move out and repurchase, their property elsewhere with me. So the convenience side was in it for them. But what my whole point is out of this story is, if you're an investor, take into account what these individuals just did. They, in a sense, lost $40,000. They took an offer $40,000 lower than they could have with a licensed real estate professional locally.
Because they made it clean. They didn't have those contingencies like we talked about earlier. Sorry to cut you off, but
no, it's true though, because
they made
of
it
the
simple.
terms. It's simple
and easy for them.
So the moral of the story is, if you're an investor or even a residential home purchaser, you run some analytics, you say, hey, I can cash flow this amount monthly, make this a rental or an Airbnb or a nursing, a rent out by the room, type of living. Those opportunities are out there right now. And I really want you guys to consider that because who the heck knows what can happen, whether it's a letter in the mail from you personally, or you contact us at Vetches Crawford Realty and say, can we contact this owner? I think it's for sale by owner. I got word they're wanting to list their house. Can I be the first one in? Yeah. Let's send them a letter, or you personally send them a letter. Okay, let's write an offer right now and get it done. Maybe it's 40,000 under. I think right now is the opportunity to look into doing that and setting aside your fear and really take account for personal investments.
That's a good advice. That's a good story. Very applicable.
Very applicable.
I didn't have anything that was relevant.
That's
like
fine.
That.
That's fine.
That was very relevant.
Yeah, and that's just one single client of ours,
awesome.
That we deal with. So we gonna have fun. And in real estate, from our experierices, stories. I'm on the phone with a buddy yesterday. He's been in the lending industry for 50 plus years. He used to have his own radio talk show out in California, and I'm always glad to give him a call and just poke his brain. And then ultimately, he's family. So we get to just talk about each other's lives. And that's what's beautiful about this whole thing. It's amazing.
It's true. I love it. All right. Well, if you have watched this video all the way through, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, share it with your mom, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss anything, because we come on here every single week and talk about real estate, and we will see you guys next time.